Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. It's me, KiaSimone. And listen, I watched the whole Carlos and Nene interview and I have some thoughts. Now, there are parts of this interview that make me go, what was the reason? And then there are other parts that are absolutely nostalgic and remind you of who Nene is and what she brought to us. But I still have questions, thoughts, and concerns. Now, before we get off into this, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. Of course, I have to take a second to shout out my super thankses. Thank you so much for always coming through to Amber Lede, Yvette Greer, Tanya Fuller, and Simone Francois. Thank y'all. Now, I'm going to tell y'all, this was damn near 3 hours. I'm just going to go over the parts that really stood out to me, which was a lot of it. So the interview starts out with them hollering, cackling, and catching up. They are just hollering, laughing, carrying on about all the good times that they've had over all the years that they were working on Real Housewives of Atlanta. I was like, oh yeah, this is cute. This is like girlfriends catching up. Now, all the bitch was a little bit much for me, but you know, hey, that's their friendship. Now, I'm watching this, and at this particular moment at the very beginning of the interview, I'm like, why are we here? Now, I'm going to tell you, as I continue to watch this and as I watched an episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta that came on in between part 1 and part 2, I kind of started to understand the reason. The show has gone to hell, and I guess she's going to tell us exactly how they got there. Now, they start out this interview by letting it be known that not only does Nene have someone on her team that is also on Drew Sidora's team, so baby, I still got access to all the same people, but she also let it be known that she don't watch that damn show no more. She said she ain't watched it since she been on it, and she don't think she can bring herself to watch that bullshit. She said, yeah, they sitting up in the house that I built, and it seems like it's tumbling down. Well, you're right. Carlos goes into letting Nene know how she's been his most requested guest, and she said, honey, I'm requested everywhere. What do you mean? He said, you know, he wanted to make sure that it was special when she came on, and it was the right timing for her, because apparently he had asked her in the past to come onto his podcast, and she declined, saying the timing wasn't right, she wasn't ready. But now apparently was the perfect time. I said now that might also answer the why, because why it would be the perfect time after her son just got caught up in a whole bunch of drama. I'm assuming this was a whole PR thing to clean up her name, his name, and try to keep the people up off him. So Carlos takes a moment to give Nene her flowers and tell her how much she means to him, how she built the whole Housewives franchise on her back. So Carlos starts by reminiscing back to when he and Nene first met. And he asked Nene, did you ever think that this would be the biggest reality TV show that Bravo had ever seen? And did you think you would be the biggest reality star ever? She said no. I didn't think the people was gonna like me. I really didn't think I was everybody's cup of tea. And all the other girls who she was on the show with treated her like an underdog. She said they were living these big fabulous lives, and she felt like she was regarded as the person who wasn't quite on their level. Now, Nene was having a little trouble coming up with saying that she was the underdog. She's trying to find the words, and Carlos is all too damn happy to help her. She said, I think when I came in, the girls were treating me like you were at the bottom. She said, no. He said, you were beneath them. No, not that either. Carlos said, well, if not that, then what? Maybe on the come up? Like, she reminded us that Sheree lived in the 15,000 square foot house with the broken gate. Sheree was having this party at the beginning of season 1. She invited all the ladies, but Nene was left off the list. So they get through the broken gate only to find out that Nene can't get through the door, and it becomes this whole scene of Nene telling them, don't play with me. Now, Sheree has since admitted all these years later on his podcast that she left Nene off of that list on purpose. Now, I really think Nene and everybody else already knew that, but thank you for admitting it. Carlos said now that she has admitted it, is there anything you'd like to say to Sheree? She said no, other than thank you so much, because that was the moment that sent me over the top. I appreciate you. So Carlos asked Nene, starting out in season 1, did you feel like you were the underdog? Nene said, that's the word I was looking for earlier when you was dragging me. She said, yes, I absolutely felt like I was the underdog. Coming in, she really felt like all the other ladies thought that they would be easily loved and accepted by the public, and Nene not so much. Nene said, but that ain't how it all worked out. They loved me and didn't care about them. So Carlos asked Nene, did you develop an ego after season 1? Nene said, no, I really don't think so. And this is the point at which this interview started to get interesting to me. Because, ma'am, what? Nene went into this whole speech about how, you know, people are saying, oh, you changed over the years, but you get older and you're supposed to grow and you're supposed to change. That has nothing to do with developing an ego. She then goes into, and then people say it's the ego when the cameras start rolling, when the truth is people are picking you apart and they're talking about your wig and your makeup and your nose and you need to get your body done. But then as soon as you get all those things done, then it's like, ooh, you got a new wig, you got your makeup done, you got your nose done, you got your body done. She said, of course I changed. If I'm on TV and you pick me apart about how I look, of course I went and got the best that I could find. But what that sounds like is you did everything to address the outside. You have adorned the outside and abandoned the inside. That's what it sounds like, because I'm so sorry, as somebody who has watched this show from season 1, episode 1, Nene absolutely developed an ego. And honestly, I think this is part of what Nene's issue is. I think Nene struggles with accountability. Nene is not going to take accountability for how she showed up and what contribution she made to the image that she has in the public. So Carlos asked Nene, when did she feel like the show started to change and morph into something that it was not when it started? She said for her, that was about season 4 when Kenya showed up, because Kenya showed up with no man and storylines. She said up to that point, all of the women who were on that show, they were showing their real lives. This was their real relationships, whatever real issues they had. They did not have scripts and storylines. They just showed up to whatever the agreed location was and they filmed. She said, but when Kenya came on, Kenya didn't have anyone. And rather than just shoot her reality and what her real life was as a single woman who was dating and looking for a man, it became this whole thing of producing a storyline for her for the sake of being on the show. Now, I do absolutely agree with Nene with that. When Kenya came on, it absolutely took a turn, because it did feel very, very, very authentic before that. Before Kenya came on, I think for me, the most concerning person in terms of fabrication was Phaedra. Phaedra was not telling the truth half the time, but she was authentically lying. Like, she lying to her mama and all. Whereas with Kenya, it just felt like something that was not natural, that was not real. She was halfway frustrated with these men she hiring to come on and play these roles that they ain't playing. It absolutely felt like that's when it took a turn. So I do agree with her there. So they got to talking about the money of it all. And Carlos asked Nene how much money did she make filming her first season of Real Housewives of Atlanta. Nene said somewhere right around $10,000. Carlos was shocked. Now, being that Carlos been working there as long as Nene, why the hell he's so shocked? What was y'all supposed to be getting more money than that? Nene said, well, don't get me to lying now, but I'm pretty sure they paid us $10,000 for the season. And then when we did that first reunion, they gave us another $5,000. I know it wasn't over $20,000. And I believe she said it took them about 3 seasons before they saw 6 figures. And it wasn't until season 4 that they actually started to make a real bag. She said, but the whole point behind that is they had knocked this show out of the park for 3 seasons before they started being paid the money that they deserved. So then Carlos gets into the history of the Nene and Cynthia friendship. And Nene explains that she didn't know Cynthia from a can of damn paint. She said production found Cynthia somewhere in the world, called me and said, we got this new girl we want to introduce to the show. We want you to go hang out with her and get to know her. So basically, they're going to expose the whole friend of the show process, that this is how they be bringing them bitches on. We don't know them hoes. Nene said she went and met with Cynthia. They met at Papados. When she walked in, Cynthia was all nervous and excited about, oh my God, it's Nene Leakes. Carlos said, did you know who Cynthia was? She said, I did not. Carlos said, but she's a supermodel. Nene said, and I still had never heard of her. Now, I ain't gonna tell you no word of lie. I had never heard of Cynthia either. I remember when they introduced her on the show and she was the supermodel and she's known as the cheekbones. I had never heard of Cynthia a day in my life. And I grew up on Jet, Ebony, Essence, all the magazines, all the pageants, all that shit. And I had never heard of Cynthia. I don't mean no harm. I'm just, Carlos just as messy about so. Cynthia Bailey, the supermodel, was starstruck when she met you. Nene said yes, and rightfully so. Y'all is some shady bitches. Carlos said, well, how did that dinner go? She said it went well. I mean, I thought we clicked. I liked her. I think she liked me. I didn't really think she was what they needed for the show, but I mean, I thought she was cool. But then once I met Peter, I understood where the talent was in this union. Oh, y'all want him, so y'all hired her. Okay. So Carlos straight up asked the question. He said, if Cynthia was not with Peter Thomas, do you think she would have been a housewife? Nene said, no, I don't think so. Nene said basically that there are two sides to Cynthia, and she feels like the side that has not been shown to the camera is the side that would have been able to sustain as a housewife even without Peter. She said, but the version of Cynthia that she would bring to the show, this quiet, demure character, no. She said, now the thing is, most people don't understand that Cynthia has that other side, but Cynthia reads for days. And they got into telling all Cynthia domestic business by how she used to curse Peter out, put him out, make him sleep at the club overnight, just well damn. So Carlos asked Nene, so when you saw Peter, this chocolate, gorgeous man, were you ever attracted to Peter? And Nene said, hell no. She said, if anything, we bumped heads all the time. It was more, I don't like you and I don't like you. Yeah, it sounds like y'all got that Martin and Pam dynamic. And I ain't never quite trusted that Martin didn't have a crush on Pam and Pam didn't have a crush on Martin. They just, So Carlos gets around to asking Nene, did she think Phaedra was a good addition to the show? Nene gave some long-ass speech about how she's been there from day one. She filmed the pilot, which we've never seen before she actually even filmed season 1. So this show was her baby, and she looked at it different from everybody else. And girl, did you think Phaedra was good for the show or not? Damn. She said, so since this show was her baby and she had such deep personal feelings about it, she felt a way when she saw certain people coming around and being added to the show. And so no, she didn't think Phaedra was a good addition. And she finally admits that she did know Phaedra from back in Athens. And she felt like, why is she here? Now, Nene, you've been lying by knowing Phaedra for a long time. And now you knew her from back in Athens. And that's why you didn't want her on the show. Carlos said, well, why did you feel a way about her coming on the show? She said, I don't know. I don't have a reason, just because it was my baby. And it's just like, why is she here? Nene, if you don't hear your own damn crazy at work, I don't know what to tell you. So Carlos goes into them discussing how much of a privilege it was to be on Real Housewives of Atlanta, how especially at its height, everybody in Atlanta wanted to get on this show. And there's a bunch of thirsty people in Atlanta that were doing anything they could to get airtime. And so he led into, do you feel like Phaedra was maybe one of those thirsty people that didn't quite represent the show? Well, Nene goes into a speech about when the Real Housewives of Atlanta came about. They were the only Black ensemble cast of a TV show, and it was the hottest thing since sliced bread. Now, she talked about how everybody was talking about them, from Ellen DeGeneres to Jimmy Fallon to Oprah Winfrey, and she just felt like, what is this girl from Athens, the same place I'm from, doing here? So basically, you felt like a door was opened for you. I have achieved something. I've accomplished something. I've made a name for myself. And now I don't want nobody who looked like me, who's from where I'm from, who's been where I've been. You can't come through this door I came through. If you are so highly aware of all of the programming that was on TV at that time that excluded Black women, and that this was this only Black ensemble cast, why would you feel like, oh, there's another Black woman who's from where I'm from? Oh no, oh, she could never. Why would you not want to hold the door open or offer a seat at the table, or at least be welcoming to another Black woman coming into this space? She literally said, when I saw Phaedra coming and I knew she was from Athens, I said, what is she here for? She can't come over here and steal my thunder. I was just protecting my space. This is insecurity personified. If you are everything you believe you are, and if your gifts have made room for you, if it was your gifts that opened this door and set this table, then how can this person come remove you from it? Carlos said, but she was a high-powered attorney. She said, I know, but unfortunately, that's just how I felt. So this woman, especially at that time, was more educated and accomplished than you, but you felt like she wasn't qualified to come through the gate you were keeping. She says, in hindsight, she realizes that Phaedra was a high-powered attorney, that she is super funny, that she was pretty good for TV, but that's just how she felt at the time. Well, this is how I feel at this time about how you felt at that time. So Carlos goes on to ask Nene, well, do you regret putting so much of your family's business out over all the years that you shared your family with us? And she said, well, not really, with the exception of a couple moments. One being when she disciplined her son on TV and she, dragged him to hell and told him he done lost his damn mind. And the thing is, I remember watching that episode thinking she was going to regret this one day. And it's interesting to now hear her say that she regrets publicly disciplining her son, how he's never really lived that down, how people still repeat the line, "You must have lost your damn mind," and how it's troubling for her son, and she wishes that she had not done that publicly, because some of these things that seem like just a moment in time or just a moment on TV are actually things that affect these people and their lives. She said the other thing she regrets is putting all her damn business out there when her and Greg were going through it, because they ended up getting divorced only to get remarried again after they done told us all they damn dirt. They done told us but all the cheating and running the street, and they right back together. Yeah. Keep that shit to yourself next time. Speaking of, Carlos asked about the headlines that have been going on regarding Bryson and how he's doing. She said, well, I think he's doing okay. I've talked to him recently. He needs rehabilitation and counseling. She said that addiction has been a struggle with several of her family members. This is something he has been struggling with for years, that he's been in and out of rehab and that he's relapsed several times. She said as a mom, it's very difficult for her to watch. She said it feels like her hands are tied because he's a grown man. She said, I think he's 31 or 32 years old. He's married. He has 3 children. There's not really anything she can do. She said, anyone who is familiar with addiction knows that the addict has to be ready for healing in order for the healing to actually work. She said she spent a lot of time, money, and energy trying to get him the help he needs, only for him to end up at the same spot all the time. So she doesn't really know what to do. Now, I don't know what the root of his issue is. I don't know what he's battling. But the question I would have is the same way that Nene is saying that she has, for example, this moment that she wishes had never happened with her son, and that it was embarrassing to him, that it's hard for him to live with. Have the conversations been had with him about how he feels about not just that moment, but any moments throughout his life? Have they actually looked at what is the root of what he's dealing with? Because one thing that I believe to be true is that addiction is symptomatic of what the real issue is. She says she loves her child, and as a mother, she would never wash her hands of her child, but she's arrived at a point where she's basically numb to it all. So Carlos asked Nene in regard to raising children on TV, do you feel like him being on TV and him being exposed in that way has affected him being able to become the adult you wanted him to be? Do you feel like that might be part of what has driven the addiction and the drug use? And she said, well, I won't say that it's the sole reason or it's the source of it, but I will say that I don't think it helped. Nene says she can relate to the fact that, when she was growing up and she was going to high school, she could just live her life and make her mistakes in private like most people. But because she chose this career, it brings scrutiny to not only her, but to her family. So she does feel for them in that regard, but she still thinks that there are just some deeper issues there. Then somebody needs to be digging to get to the deeper issues. If you broke your arm, and somebody kept giving you ibuprofen, but nobody ever actually treats the broken bone, you're eventually gonna develop an addiction to ibuprofen or whatever you are using to treat the pain, because you've not actually healed the issue. So now it looks like the issue is you're an addict, when the truth is you have a break in your arm that is untreated, that you are using this addiction to numb. So if you feel like there's a deeper issue, you need to get him to somebody that can handle the deeper issue. That's probably some sort of a therapist. So Carlos goes on to ask Nene if being on TV affected her marriage to Greg. She said, yes, it absolutely did. And the primary reason it affected their marriage is because Greg was the breadwinner. Greg was the head of household. So Greg talked all this shit. Well, when she started getting a check of her own, she started talking shit back. And Greg wasn't quite used to that, so it caused some friction in their household. She said when she started making more money than him, that's when he really started side-eyeing at it. Who you supposed to be? She said she didn't have to ask him for money anymore. If she wanted something, she just went and bought it. If she needed something done, she just paid for it. Well, this tells me 2 things. One, This is why your relationship needs to be predicated on more than who makes what money in order to determine who gets what respect. Maybe we should just respect each other because it's the thing to do, because eventually I might make more money than you and you ain't gonna want me to treat you like you treating me. Secondly, this is why you got to be real careful how you treat people when you think you got the upper hand, because you never know how them tables gonna turn. So Carlos asked, do you think that you emasculated him once you started making more money? And she said, I ain't gonna tell you no word of lie, I probably did. She said, my mouth probably got a little smarter. I was up in his face a little more. I'm talking a little more shit, taking a little less shit. Yeah, I probably made him feel like a little less than a man. So Nene goes into how, Greg is this old school guy. He was the definition of an OG. He believed in being the man who's the head, the protector, the provider, all that stuff. And so her making more money and her no longer needing him, asking him for stuff, asking for his help with stuff, definitely emasculated him in some way. And so Carlos goes into explaining how he feels like when the tables turn on this kind of a marriage dynamic, where the man is the breadwinner and the woman becomes the breadwinner after so many years of this man being the provider and taking care of her, that sometimes what he feels like happens is the woman starts to emasculate her man in subtle ways, whether she realizes it or not. He said, and he knows he's going to get a bunch of flack for this, and I'm glad you know, but he said that he has a girlfriend who intentionally plays dumb so that her husband, who she makes a lot more money than, can still feel needed. Now, this some bullshit. Nene said, I ain't got time for that shit. Now, thank you so very much for being somebody's voice of damn reason, because you got to be bullshitting me. What you mean? She goes outside and pretends that she can't crank her car, and I don't know how to open this, and I don't know how to do that. You mean to tell me you can go out here and make enough money to take care of me, you, and everybody else in this house, but you can't crank your damn car to get to the damn job? I'm not about to play with this man. I'm very sorry. I am not a proponent of the dumb yourself down to get picked by a man, or so that he can feel better as a man. If you being dumb, or you being at your lowest, or you being incapable of doing things for yourself is what makes him feel like a man, you might need to examine the man you're dealing with, because that ain't it. The thing is, regardless of how much money I make, the coin cannot replace your counsel. Them dollars can't fold me up like a pretzel. I can't go to the bank after a long day of work and say, let me tell y'all about this on my job. Now, those are just very small examples, but there are so many other ways that a man is needed and can be made to feel needed. But for me to have to dumb down and have to dim my light and have to pretend to be less than I am in order to have this man, baby, that ain't the man I want. Take that weak shit up the block. We don't do that around here. This part of this interview drove me up a wall, because I wasn't really going to review this, but they kept going to hell in the carpool lane. I said, y'all going to hell a little too damn fast for me. Play dumb for who? So Carlos brought up when the divorce actually happened between Nene and Greg, and said that a lot of people assumed that at the time you were at the height of your career and that you just thought the grass might be greener on the other side and you wanted to go explore. But the truth is you were devastated, and even when you shared with me that you had gotten divorced, you made me not share it with the network, and I had to keep your secret. Nene used this moment to express that not only was she absolutely devastated that her marriage had come to an end, but the public had a misperception of the dynamic between she and Greg. She said, people would assume that I'm the problem. I got all the mouth, but don't nobody really know that Greg was very nice, nasty. She said, he was very quiet, but he could gather your ass. She said Greg could be such a piece of work that the only way to get his ass together was to divorce his ass for real. She said she'll never forget the day that they actually got divorced. This man called her and said, you bitch, you divorced me. You damn Skippy. So Carlos brought up her dating life after her divorce, because she went and played around in the street a little bit before she remarried Greg. I mean, if you gonna get divorced, make the motherfucker count. Carlos said, so yeah, you started dating John, that white man that had all that money. She said, yeah, I actually just talked to him last night. Carlos said, oh, really? She said, yeah, he called when he saw all the headlines about Bryson and said that he has a facility that he can get him into. He would pay for everything. Now, I do think I might have to go on a date with him, but well, wouldn't the barter system help? She said, oh, and while we name dropping Lamar Odom, also called and offered help to my son. Now, I don't know if that's letting us know that she still got a network of famous people or if that's for them people that's after her son to let her know, listen, please don't lock him up. We getting them all kind of help. So they delved into Nene's dating life once she got single and how was it to date as this newly single woman and dating with money and how it's so different. It feels much better. And Carlos asked her, well, you know, you were dating John who was buying you Rolexes and red bottoms. Did it feel like this is probably more in line with what I deserve? She said, yeah, it was all very nice. But the problem was there was no substance. There was nothing there beyond the money and the shopping sprees and the outings. So he could fill my damn closet, but he couldn't fulfill me. If that don't tell you money ain't every damn thing. Now, I don't know if this was the best time to get your ass on the internet and say that shit after you said the man had just called you and he get ready to pay for your son to go to rehab and try to take you on a date and spend some more money. Now, I don't know if this was the best time to say it, but I feel where you're coming from. So Carlos goes into when Nene and Greg got back together and they were filming her wedding special and that he and Nene got into it the day of her wedding. And that she slammed the door in his and the rest of production's face, told them to leave her alone. She's not filming nothing. I think this might be the ego he was asking you about earlier. Nene's only explanation was she needed a moment. She said she's been a bride before that and didn't have cameras all in her face. And she had been on camera all day and she just needed a moment. Well, I guess you got all the moments now. Then we move into her current dating life. Carlos asked her, you know, listen, one of your most famous lines is you saying close your legs to married men. How do you feel that people are now saying that you've opened your legs to a married man because you were dating a man who was legally married? Nene said, well, yeah, I was dating a man who was legally married and going through a divorce. Carlos said, oh, a man going through a divorce, kind of like Kim and Big Papa. Nene said, now see, no, it ain't nothing like Kim and Big Papa because I don't think Big Papa ever actually got a divorce. She said, now, Yoni, Yanni, whatever the hell the man's name is. She said, now, as we sit here today, Yoni is a divorced man. She said, now, Big Papa ain't never been divorced from his wife. Matter of fact, I just saw them out of town the other day. Hey, y'all. Nene said, now, when I met him, he told me he was separated. Now, I don't know what he told his wife at the time that he was legally married to. See, that right there is why I don't date the men who are separated. But as we sit here today, he is a legally divorced single man. Well, he also is single because he ain't in no relationship with you. Now, you done let this man use you for the come up. And y'all ain't even together once he actually gets the divorce, girl. So Carlos asked about the accusations and rumors that Nene actually met Yanni before Greg passed away. She said that's a damn lie. She said she didn't meet him until about a month after Greg passed away, which was actually perfect timing for her and what she was going through with her grieving. She said they started off as just friends. He would invite her and her friends out to places. It kept her mind off of what she was going through. She said, but she feels like it was the public and them always speculating about what they were that made them more serious than they were. And now they're not serious at all. Carlos said, so you telling me y'all ain't together now? She said, well, we're taking a break, you know. He said, why? She said, well, because there's things I didn't like, things he didn't like, things we didn't like. And so we're just taking a break. Or he feels like he's famous enough now that he's attached himself to you. And now that he's famous enough and single, he can go do what he really want to do. Maybe it's that. Nene said that just might be the case. She don't give a damn. She said if any of you ladies out there want to holler at him, holler at him. And fellas, if y'all standing on a tall wallet and you want to holler at this tall lady, come on through. And then Nene started with all her shade. She said, now Yanni makes great money. He does great business. But I think one of the requirements for me is I'm going to need my man to make more money than me, period. Just, I can't even compromise on that. Carlos said, well, I think the best way I've heard it put is there can be but one star per household. Nene said, yeah, and being in a relationship with Yanni is going to require 2 stars. And I'm about to fight with him. Carlos said, so the people said they think he using you for fame. What you think? Nene said, hell yeah. She said, well, I don't want to say that he was using me for fame, but he for damn sure wasn't hating on it. That should find a photo op before me. So Carlos asked Nene, does she feel like she will ever have the kind of love that she had with Greg with another man? And she said, absolutely not. She feels like she will find someone who she can spend her life with. But what she had with Greg was an ultimate love. It was a once in a lifetime love. And she does not think that they will ever duplicate that. So then Carlos gets around to asking Nene, well, how does it feel for you when people ask, do you still have money? Are you broke? Nene said, who the hell asked that? Ain't nobody never asked me that. Where you get that from? He said, no damn body asked me that. And for the record, no, I ain't broke. And Lord, please don't let it happen. So Carlos moves on to asking Nene about season 5. And he said that in his opinion, Kenya and Portia were great additions to the show. And they actually saved the show. He asked her, how does she feel about that? Now, I got to tell you, Nene is long-winded as hell. I kept having to rewind through these answers like, what the hell was the question? Nene goes off into, when Kenya came on, she didn't know her for being an actress. All she knew was she was the Black Miss USA. She was a Black Barbie to all of us. And with Portia, she didn't know anything about Portia other than her grandfather, who was this activist from back in the day in the charity that they have in Atlanta. Kenya came on with all her antics and all her twirls, and Portia came on, but it was 265 days in a year. And so she thought these bitches were dumb. She don't understand why they were added. The network didn't really want to keep Portia around. She felt like Cordell was holding Portia back at the time. And that the truth of the matter is she was the one who went to bat for Portia. That she is who helped Portia keep her job on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. And she feels like people forget that. Now after Nene done gone off about how she saved Portia's, Carlos goes on to say, well, the following season, season 6, when they did keep Portia, was in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the highest viewed season of all time. Nene said, okay, and that was season what? Season 6, they were getting 5 million viewers, and now in season 15, they're getting 500,000. Nene said what she thinks it was is that they had a lot of conflict in that season and everybody was showing up for work. So then Carlos gets into addressing the beef between Nene and Kenya and said, you know, a lot of people have speculated that your issue with Kenya is that you felt like she was going to come and take your shine, that she was going to come knock you out of the box as the star of the show. Nene said, that's a damn lie, because I never felt like she was a star. Now, I think she's good for the show, but the star of the show? No, ma'am. He brought up how Cynthia and Nene fell out and asked, did Nene think that was because people kept getting in Cynthia's ear and telling her, oh, Nene is running you and you ain't nothing but her lapdog. She said she absolutely feels like people getting in Cynthia's head had a lot to do with the fall apart of their friendship. She said, and the whole idea of her being able to run over Cynthia is a joke to her because she said Cynthia ain't nobody you can run over. The issue is that most of us, the general public, don't actually know Cynthia's personality. She feels like Cynthia in particular hides who she truly is, the whole 50 Cent character, from the public so that she can be perceived a certain way. So Carlos asked about the possibility of rekindling the friendship between Cynthia and Nene. Nene said that would be a hell no. That would be a not now, not then, not never. Will me and her be friends again? He said, well, damn, why? I mean, did she try to stop your bag? She said, well, for as much as she was on camera talking about me trying to stop her, she was definitely trying to stop mine. Now, Nene, didn't you go on Watch What Happens Live and say that Cynthia was pretty damn useless as a housewife and they could save their money and let her go? Didn't you say something like that? Nene said she know a lot of shit Cynthia did that she don't know she knows. She said she had alliances with housewives and production, and she was doing all kind of stuff behind the scenes to try to get her put off the show. So Carlos starts explaining to her that the other ladies really looked up to her, that she was an anchor for the show, and Nene said she never felt that way. She did not feel like she was supported by the ladies, by production, by anybody the way that she should have been supported. Nene said not only did she not feel supported, she felt like every time there was a new lady added to the show, the whole MO was come for Nene. She said it gets tiring. Now, he's going on to explain how famous and recognizable she was, and he starts out with, white women loved you. What? Nene said, of course. She said, I get stopped everywhere by people of all colors. White, black, young, old. They stop me all the time. Because what? So he's talking about her relationships with people from other networks and asking her how the relationships are. And she said, I don't have a problem with nobody. She said, I've never had a problem on any set of any show that I worked on other than Housewives. The only place I have a problematic reputation is at Bravo on a Real Housewives of Atlanta set. She said, I'm not one of them talents that comes through with a whole rider and I need chicken wings and a bottle of liquor and a whole bunch of attention. She said, I don't need shit. I need some water and my check. I show up, I do what you ask me to do, and goodbye. So there isn't any reason for anybody to have any problem with her about how she shows up to set, because she purposely goes on set and tells herself to shut the hell up and show the hell up. Just get this check. Nene went on to say that she specifically does that because she feels like people are looking for that. Here comes another black girl with her attitude and all her problems. And part one of the interview comes to an end with Carlos asking, why did you feel the need to sue Bravo? And child, I was planning on reviewing part one and part two together, but I feel like I've been sitting here for a minute. I need a drink and some food before I get hangry and go off, because y'all know how I act. But that's it. That's all for part one. I'm going to go fix me a plate of food, and I'm going to watch part two, and I'm going to come on back and tell y'all what I think about that shit. So thank you so much for coming down here, listening to me, and letting me get this off my chest. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. And in the meantime, until next time, just like every time, you know I love you and I mean it. Bye.